reporting to you live from the prehistorical pre-dino era before the dinosaurs. The fossils are still alive. I just saw a Mastodontosaurus rex and mammoths and velociraptors and pterodactyls, and I'm watching a basketball game, and guess what? The basketball is still cool back then, right now, where I am playing ball and physical rules, and no one's shooting threes. We're shooting rocks into a bucket because there's no real balls right now. I just saw a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I love it back now in the pre-dino historic time because basketball is still awesome and it's still played the right way. On a serious note, please like and subscribe to my channel, or don't. Please hate it. I want this channel to fail. But I was watching one of my favorite YouTubers. The channel is called Uncut Hoops. Check out Uncut Hoops. But he's doing a video about the devolution. De-evolution. Is devolution a word? He's doing a video about the devolution of basketball. Essentially, he's saying, pretty much from the 80s, 90s, what a lot of people consider the golden era of basketball. He's saying the game has devolved quite a bit from the 80s and 90s up until the 2020s, and I think he's mainly just talking about the 2020s, not so much the later 2010s and that time, but basically the point he's making is that the game has devolved quite a bit from the 80s and the golden age with Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, and the boys. And try to guess what his point is. You probably know what the point is. The point is essentially that there's way too many three balls being taken. That wasn't the whole point of his video. There's other differences in the game as well. Mainly the three balls being taken. We take so many more threes than they did back in the day. Ball movement, the spacing of the game, toughness of players, all sorts of different things he touched on, and differences from that NBA to today's NBA. I'm not going to get into the three-point stats too much, but if you look at the numbers, it's way more threes we're shooting today than back in the 80s, needless to say. I was watching a Lakers-Celtics game from the 80s. It was 1988. They had shot 14 threes. 14 threes for the entire game. So first, second, third, fourth quarter, the entire game, they shot 14 threes for the entirety of it, where today, of course, it'll be the first quarter, and both teams probably already took 14 threes each. So that is definitely a humongous difference. Just for an idea, 14 threes for the entire game is just unheard of in today's NBA, but that's what the Lakers and Celtics had done back then. And then people love to complain about the three-point attempts in today's NBA, essentially just way too many three-pointers being taken. It kind of waters down the game and makes the game a little more boring, I guess you would say. There was actually a quote from LeBron. He was saying, this is from 2010 when he said this, but he's saying the game is way more watered down these days. Again, keep in mind this was 2010. He was saying, I wish we could get it back like it was in the 80s, basically, where you have 3-4 all-star, superstar, Hall of Fame style players like on the Celtics, where you have Parrish, Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, or the Lakers, where you have Magic Johnson, James Worthy, and Kareem all on the same team. It's funny because LeBron said this in 2010, then the very next year he teams up in Miami and puts together his own super team in Miami. Going to the watered down aspect, I kind of get what LeBron was making more the point that there's not enough superstars on individual teams. I think that's a weird point to make. I feel like in some way you can say the league is watered down in terms of talent. I don't think it's watered down in terms of talent. It's just that there's so many talented players, and they're just spread out in all sorts of different teams. And I personally think that's more entertaining than having, all these superstars just on one team. Golden State in 2017-18, that's when they went back-to-back. Like, I guess it was cool. It would have been way more cool if Kevin Durant stayed on OKC and we got those playoff battles, in my opinion. So it's making the point that the league is watered down. LeBron said that in 2010, just in terms of the talent being too spread out, I guess. LeBron saying he wanted there to be 3-4 superstar Hall of Fame style players on one or two teams. So I guess those teams are kind of battling it out. everybody would have a different perspective on that. I feel like the league is in a good spot as far as the talent being all spread around. The last 7, I think it's 8 years now with OKC winning. We've had different champions every single year, and I think the parity's cool for the NBA, and I think it's fun to see some of these teams like OKC that have never won a championship. They won one as the Supersonics, but the actual OKC Thunder had never won a championship, so that was cool to see. See different teams be able to win year in and year out. So I don't think the league is watered down in terms of talent. That was the point LeBron had made in 2010. But I think the watered down point people are making now is just the 3-point shooting attempts. You watch teams play. Looks like every team has the same style. Everyone's trying to get to shooting an open 3 at the end of their possession. I disagree and I agree on this. Teams don't all have the same styles. If you say that, you're just lazy and you're not watching basketball these days. There's plenty of people they'll admit, I haven't watched basketball in 15 years. Basketball sucks now. I'm like, how can you have an opinion on something that you haven't watched in 15 years? It's like if I watched season 1 of Game of Thrones or something, and then I said, season 8 sucks. It's like you didn't even watch it. Like, how do you know? How can you have an opinion on something you haven't watched in 15 years when things are just changing year in and year out? So I don't like people that'll have that opinion where they just regurgitate what they've been hearing from everyone else. Too many threes, this and that, the game sucks. So like I was saying, all the teams, they have different styles. Everyone has their own style. The Pacers, for example, they want to run the fast break. They want to push the pace. They love to get transition threes, but overall they're trying to push the pace. Oklahoma City Thunder like to do the same thing, but they're trying to play just lockdown defense, which they do, and just create turnover after turnover and create havoc. Then in the half court, they go to SGA and isolate and just let him create for his teammates. Lakers are kind of heliocentric with Luka and LeBron. They're trying to let their playmakers create for everyone else. I can keep on going. All the teams have different styles. Detroit wants to go through K. They want to play physical. They're not really a team that's trying to shoot a lot of threes. Neither is OKC. OKC's not a very heavy 3-point oriented team, but they shoot way more than they were back in the 80s. Moving on though, all the teams have different styles. Just like in the 80s, 90s, all the teams had different play styles. The difference though is today the 3-point shot is the 3-point shot. All the teams, like I said, they are all shooting threes. I agree there may be too many threes being taken. I think they could shoot less threes. I won't argue with you on that. But as far as, yes, the teams are all trying to take threes, but they play different styles to try to get their 3-point attempts. All the teams have different ways of creating their 3 balls, where in the 90s and the 80s, they weren't shooting as many threes, but I've been watching a lot of full games. I'm watching the 91 finals right now with the Lakers and the Bulls, and believe it or not, they both have different styles, but at the end of the day, the Lakers, the Bulls, both teams are trying to get the ball down low. They're trying to get it to Horace Grant, Bill Cartwright. The Lakers are trying to get it down to Vlade Divac, James Worthy in the post. But instead of doing all these things with their different styles to try to create a 3-point shot at the end of the day, they're doing all these things just to create an effective post-up for Divac, James Worthy, whoever it is. They're trying to create effective post-ups for their players so they can work out of the post to kick it out and get something open for whoever else it was. But the offense is generated through the post, where whether it's right or wrong, today everything's generated through the 3-point line. So you're just trying to pass the ball around, get players rotating on the 3-point line, and then if stuff breaks down in the paint, teams will take that open layup all day. They'll pass the ball down low to get a finish down low, but primarily they're looking for the 3-point shot, and everything's coming off of the 3-point shot. So just like back in the 80s, same thing today. All the teams have different play styles. If you want to say all the teams are just shooting threes, they all play exactly the same. That's just lazy analysis. You're not really watching the games. Like I said again, yes, all the teams are shooting a lot of threes, but back in the 80s, back in the 90s, all the teams were posting up a whole lot, and people didn't complain about that so much, even though, just like with the 3-ball, just an overwhelming amount of post-ups, an overwhelming amount of players just clogging the paint, not really spaced out, where today it's the opposite. Everything's just super, super spaced out. Another point with the 3-pointers being shot, the Chicago Bulls, I forgot the exact number, but they had a game last season where they missed the most three-point attempts in a game. NBA record, most three-point shots missed ever in a game. And people will pick that out and they want to say, this is that type of stuff we don't like. This is what we want to get fixed. People have to take less threes. It's ugly for the game. And I agree to a point. I do feel like there's too many threes being taken, but league average for threes is maybe 37%, something like that is the league average team to team. So it does get ugly watching players and teams just brick three after three, and it's not looking good. But let's say all the teams are shooting, let's say league average is 45% from three, and every team's just knocking down three after three after three. A team is down 20 points, and they knock down 10 threes in a row. Now they're up 10 points, just crazy swings. Essentially, everyone's shooting, instead of shooting 35% as a team, you're shooting 45 now. Teams just knocking down threes like crazy. Ball movement, player movement, because there's still a lot of ball movement and player movement. Fans of the 80s and 90s, which I'm one as well, I don't hate on the era, but they want to act like the ball movement and player movement was so much better back then, and now all that happens is isolation, dribble between the legs a million times, step back and shoot a three. That does happen, but there's still ball movement, there's still player movement. I feel like offensive sets are just as advanced, I'd like to say more advanced than they were back then because of the spacing on the court. Players are more skilled top to bottom, whether you want to believe it or not, it just is what it is. The 80s was 40 years ago. After 40 years goes by and a game's been going, football, basketball, yes, things are going to develop. Players are going to get better. They're going to see different ways they can make their game better. Watch the players before them and improve their game off of that tape, what they watch. It's just ignorant to think the game's not going to evolve and players aren't going to get better in a 30, 40-year span. But back to my point about the three-point attempts, I do feel like it's a bit of a problem. But again, if players were shooting, or teams rather, were shooting 45% from three and just knocking them down all day, I don't think anybody would be complaining about the three-point attempts being shot. It just looks ugly when players are missing so many threes. Moving on, another good point I heard someone make, it's just a green light. Whether you're a great three-point shooter, an average three-point shooter, or even a bad three-point shooter, just get your ass out there. You have the ultimate green light. Shoot as many threes as you want. A point I do agree with, coaching was more strict in the 80s, 90s. Players didn't have as much power as they do today, so you just kind of have to do what the coach tells you to do. You still do today, but not as much as you did back then. And coaches just said, this is the way we play basketball. You're not going to be jacking up all these dumb threes, where today players have more leeway to shoot crazier shots, shoot more threes without the coach pulling you out, just because the game is played so much differently. Another thing, fast break threes. Back in the 80s, 90s, if it's a 2-on-1 fast break, you're running for a layup. 3-on-1, whatever it is, you're running for a layup. They did shoot jumpers on fast breaks in the 80s, believe it or not. Guys would spot up in the corner. Guys might spot up on the wing, get an open jumper, and shoot a jumper like one step within the three-point line. So I don't understand people that want to get mad about that. It's like, back in my day, we would take one step inside of the three-point line and shoot a long jumper instead of taking one step back and getting the extra point for a shot that's not a way longer distance. So I feel like it was part of the culture back then. It definitely was, where the three-point shot was still looked at as almost a circus shot. It's just a last resort opportunity. Even Larry Bird was saying he didn't look at the three ball as a shot to get an advantage as a team. He just looked at it as maybe his team is up one and he's shooting a three in the last minute of the game and just demoralizes the other team and kind of puts the game away. But just because the players in the 80s and 90s weren't thinking about using the three-point shot as that much of a weapon, it doesn't mean that it's a bad strategy to use it today to your advantage. There was a reason they weren't shooting the three ball as much back then. A big reason of it was they weren't able to shoot the shot. That's not me saying there weren't players that were capable. Of course, Byron Scott, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson was a decent three-point shooter. There's other guys that were very good three-point shooters, and they would be very good shooters in today's NBA. But the thing was, not a lack of capability, not they weren't capable of shooting the ball that long and making it go into the hoop at a high percentage. It was just more the way the offense was run. The three-point shot was alienated, so you're not going to go out there and shoot 2-3 threes back to back without getting pulled out of the game or without your coach kind of looking at you sideways. It was another Larry Bird quote. He said, back in that day, you couldn't shoot like back-to-back threes without somebody thinking you're crazy. Say you shoot an open three and you miss it and your team gets the offensive rebound. It's like, all right, we took our 1-3. Now let's set up an offensive set and try to get something going in the paint. So I do get all those points. Like I said, I do think there's too many threes being shot to a degree, but I don't think that's the main problem with the game. Or like Uncut Hoops video was saying, he was saying the game devolved. I don't so much agree that the game devolved. Maybe from like the 2010s till now, I guess I can see in somewhat of a way, but it's not like there's still all sorts of great player movement, all sorts of great movement off the ball, great offensive sets, players run. The game is more advanced offensively and defensively than it was back in the 90s. If you don't believe me, like I said, I'm watching the 91 NBA Finals. They have all the full games on YouTube, so please go and check them out. Not to be a Jordan hater, Jordan is my GOAT, but the game was not nearly as advanced offensively, defensively. The sets are so much more complex on defense. All the switches teams run, all the off-ball movement players run on offense. I swear, Steph Curry runs off more screens in one quarter than Michael Jordan runs off in the entire game. And that's not to bash on Jordan or try to big up Steph Curry. It's just saying the game was played differently. They weren't trying to move so much off the ball. It's pretty much 4 guys, 3 guys crammed in the paint, 1 guy spotted up on the corner of the wing, and then your ball handler just trying to dump the ball down into the post. And there was nothing wrong with that. It was just different. I mean, I grew up on early 2000s basketball. I'm a Spurs fan. The dead era was when I pretty much came up watching basketball, so I was used to that slow pace, and then people start shooting more threes. I enjoy that style of basketball as well. And now, like I'm saying, I'm watching the full 1991 NBA Finals, and the games are really entertaining. Michael Johnson, I guess that is his actual name, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, James Worthy, everyone's super entertaining to watch. There's still amazing plays going on, but the spacing's just really bad. If they had a three-point shooter in both corners, Michael could create so much more. Magic could create so much more with the floor being spaced out. And, I think you cannot like today's NBA, but still look back at the 90s and say, man, this is horrible spacing. It'd be better if we had 2 3-point shooters out there to space out the court. Doesn't mean you need to shoot a million three-pointers throughout the game, but I think it's just ignorant to act like, back then these were the good old days. The game was more evolved back when nobody could shoot the ball. Like, that wouldn't make any sense to me. Another point they were making, Greg Popovich actually made this point. He's saying there's no more 4-year college players. Everyone's one and done. They're not in college learning all these fundamentals of the game, how to space the court, where you should be. Say they're dribbling the ball on the wing, the point guard has the ball, where you should be spaced out as a small forward, power forward, whatever your position is, just knowing how to space the court, how to move off ball, knowing all of your fundamental footwork, and just kind of developing your free throws, your shooting, whatever else it is, because it was the norm in the 90s. Pretty much all the players would go to college for 3 or 4 years. They'd come into the NBA and be already a pretty developed player that's, like Jordan, for example, can come in and average 28 points as a rookie. But now, Popovich was making the point, players just come in, usually they're one and done. Maybe they played overseas and they're coming in, they're 20, 21, 22 years old. And he said the NBA is more of a developmental league now, because you come in as a young player and you're developing players based on their potential, what you think they can turn into, instead of drafting them based on what you already saw them do for 4 years of college. And I prefer that, honestly. I don't want to see, if Victor Wembanyama, Amen Thompson, Anthony Edwards, just keep naming young guys, if those guys were playing in college, I'd be like, what the hell are you even doing in there? They'd just be cooking guys. It would be obvious that, this player is way more talented than these college kids. He should be in the NBA already. But then you have those fringe players where they come in the NBA and you can tell like they did come in too early. 4 years of college could have benefited this player to come in as an even better player. I think Paulo Banchero is a good example. Paulo is an absolutely cold player. He's a superstar in the making, but his free throws aren't great. His three ball is not too great. Some other fundamental things he can work on. But like Pop was saying, it's more of a developmental league where players are coming in and getting developed. Their first 2, 3, 4 years when they would be in college, they're developing their NBA game, and I don't think it's a good thing or a bad thing. Like I said again, I don't want to see some high-level superstar player in college and then you spent 4 years in college when I could have seen you for those 4 years in the NBA. Imagine if we saw Michael Jordan for those 4 years when he was 18 to 22, I believe it would have been. It would have been fun to watch him in the NBA at a younger age, and I'm just not a huge college basketball fan, to be fair. But back to the point, though, check out Uncut Hoops video. I'm a big fan of Uncut Hoops channel, but he was asking if the game had devolved, and comment below what you think. I don't think the game has devolved. I think the game is still evolving. If you took the basketball from the 1990s, like 95, and you went to, or rather early 90s, if you took 1991 and you went to 2006, right at the end of the dead ball era, you'd probably say, man, the game devolved from 1991 to 2006 just because the era was so slow, all this ugly defense, teams were barely scoring 85, 90 points. But then if you moved on to 2015, you'd say, man, the game's evolved from 2005 to 2015. Now we're in the era, it's the three-point heavy era. I don't think the NBA is going to be like this forever and everyone's just going to be shooting a million threes for the rest of the NBA's history for the rest of the NBA's future, but that's just the era we're in. I don't think the game is devolving. I think it's just always changing, but overall players are more talented top to bottom than they've ever been, and offensive and defensive schemes are more advanced than they've ever been. Just all the three-point shooting and things like that, but we'll get through it. I think players are just more talented, and teams are kind of overloaded on the three-point shooting aspect. Everyone figured out, man, we can space the floor out if we have everyone shooting threes. Now it's just kind of bringing it back to the mean and making sure we don't have all these people out there shooting threes that don't belong out there, and just try to get the mid-range game and the post game a bit back into basketball, so it's kind of more of a three-level game. But please comment below. Let me know what you think. We'll see y'all next time.